Welcome everybody to Manor Lords, an amazing game that's been in development for about 7 years now, and I'm really excited to finally get my hands on it, play around with it. Funny enough, I played around for a few hours this morning on live stream, and I'm taking what I learned from there and putting it into this video and a new series moving forward, which is going to dive into Manor Lords and the journey that is Gunter, which is fitting considering that's the name of the channel. So let's start off with a new game. We have a choice of portrait, and I love this little bearded guy. Although the portrait really doesn't matter, you're always going to look like, I want to say, this guy right here. But that's okay. We're going to change our name to Gunter, very fitting of the time and place. And then we get to create our own coat of arms. Now, you have the option here to create your own coat of arms. You can actually upload your own images and stuff like that. We're going to go with a more generic one, and I actually played around with it a little bit, and I kind of like the way this particular coat of arms looks like. So without further ado, let's dive in. From a game setup perspective, we have 3 scenarios to work our way through. We have Rise to Prosperity, Restoring the Peace, and On the Edge. We're going to go with Restoring the Peace with a victory condition to conquer every region. And the benefit of Restoring the Peace is it's going to have bandit camps that we're going to have to fight off. We're going to have to fight an illegitimate Baron, whereas opposed to Rise to Prosperity is all about just creating a tranquil, large settlement. May not see a whole lot of combat. And then, of course, On the Edge is very combat focused. So I believe that Restoring the Peace is going to be kind of like in that sweet spot in the middle. We have a lot of options on the left-hand side for you to work through. We're going to start off in spring. Our initial raider-free years is going to be 2, which means after 2 years, we're going to have to fight off some raiders. And we only have 1 map to work with. So let's begin our journey in Manor Lords. And just like that, we have dived into our land. We're going to go ahead and pause the game. We have a new message. Build up your town, your manor, and when ready, press claims towards regions owned by your opponents. Once a claim has been pressed, be ready for battle. I'll unite these lands under my rule. Very fitting for this map. Now, we can take a look at where we are. Not an ideal position to be in. I'd like to think the center is probably the absolute worst to kind of be started in. Normally if we're kind of like on the edges, we can kind of fight off, but that's okay. We're gonna deal with the hand that's been dealt to us. Now, from a map perspective, there's a few things that we want to take into consideration. Right off the bat, I'm seeing this really cool granary and destroyed windmill, which we might want to try to reuse. But our settlement is all the way up here, so we're gonna have to figure out how we can work within this settlement. We're probably going to want to move as much as we can, so we might just set up on the main pathway right here. It's going to be a little bit of a trek to get there, but that's okay. It's not that bad. So we have a few things that we have to take into consideration when we're playing this game. Right off the bat, we have our core resources. We have construction, timber, planks, stone, tools, wooden parts, roof tiles, and blocks. We have food, such as meat, vegetables, berries, bread, eggs, apples, and honey. We have fuel, which is firewood and charcoal. Crops, such as wheat, flax, barley, rye, dung, and fertilizer. Lots of crafting materials, which we're not going to get into because they're going to come later in the game. Now, when setting up your initial village, what you want to do is you want to take a look at your overlay. And right off the bat, we're going to want to see where our underground water runs, and we have to have a well set up where everybody needs water. So we can kind of see that we really only have 2 places we can kind of set up when it comes to water. We also want to take a look at emmer fertility. Emmer fertility is going to be your wheat. So it's emmer wheat. We don't have a whole lot to work with from a fertility perspective because this is going to be our main source of food. We also need to take into consideration a few other things. We have a really strong berry deposit, so we're going to survive off a lot of berries. We do have a wild animal deposit, some clay, iron, and stone deposits. And eventually what will probably end up happening is we are going to make our way to over here. We might want to take advantage of these pre-existing granaries. We can actually rebuild it and stuff like that. And I like the kind of like how that's set up. So let's start working. Now, you actually do have topography that you have to deal with, especially when it comes to fighting and stuff like that. So you want to keep that in mind. And the other thing you have to note is we have a list of supplies. They're all kind of just hanging out on the ground. Now, it's easy in this game to immediately think that your goal is to build some burgage plots. So burgage plots are going to be where all of your guests or your citizens, your village people, are going to live. Now, the reality is burgage plots are not what you want to start off with, because you can actually soft lock yourself in this game from the very beginning. Now, the best way to start off with, because you can see your timber, we only have a limited amount. We're going to start off by setting down a logging camp. Now, logging camp is going to allow us to kind of continue to pull in a lot more resources. So we're just going to go ahead and place this a little over here. Now, by clicking and holding on the mouse button, you can actually start to rotate your buildings around. You just can kind of find the best way to go about it. But this game has a super intuitive building style, which I'm really impressed with for it being an early access game. And I can see myself playing this game a lot moving forward, as I kind of loved what this provides. It's very similar to Falling Frontier, and I loved that game when it came out, and it's now out. But I'm really digging the what I've played so far in this particular game. So we're going to go ahead and place down our logging camp. Now, off the bat, our logging camp, our construction, so we have 5 families to work with. Our families will automatically start producing or constructing the logging camp. We don't really have to do anything. We don't have to worry about it. And thankfully, in the game, what they do, or what they do allow you to do, is your roadways will automatically build. You don't have to actually build your roadways or anything like that. You just place them down. Pretty much that's about it. And we're going to go ahead and connect it up with our resources up here. Now, on top of that, a few other things that we're going to want to start taking a look at building is not going to be our forge or our hunting camp, even though it doesn't cost us anything really to build. Hunting camp, in fact, is actually free. We want to take a look at some logistics, specifically our storehouse and our granary. So even though we are in March, we're the beginning of the spring year, so we're spring year 1, we are going to have frequent rainfall, and rainfall can damage what resources we have that are kind of laying out and about. So we do need to kind of find a solution for this. So knowing that, we're going to go ahead and also place down a granary and a storehouse right next to it. So this is going to be kind of perfect. We're going to get something that's nice and neat. I'm a huge fan of creating things nice and neat. If you watch the live stream, it definitely was not nice and neat. And we're going to start off with that. So that's going to be, I think, more than enough for us to start kind of taking stab at and starting to construct. Now, you can leave this running on your number 1 speed, normal speed. I do appreciate that the fast speed at times 12 is probably more than enough here in terms of getting it produced and constructed. And you can see the importance, as we pause here, you can see the importance of making sure that you're building close enough to your homeless people's camp, so your initial camp here and your resources. If you build too far away, such as if we were to build down here, it would take way too long for us to kind of grab all the materials and set it all up. Now, that's not to say that we can't set up our burgage plots and stuff like that off this main road. This is the King's Highway, so we want to keep that free for any trade and stuff like that. But we can definitely set up some subplots just off the side, and that's okay. We can start building after the fact. Now, our first logging camp is constructed. Step 1 is to assign a family. So unlike in other games that you're normally used to, where families are automatically assigned, your workforce is automatically assigned, you are responsible for assigning your own workforce. Now, how you assign workforce is by your family. So even though we have 10 people working, we actually only have 5 people available, so 5 families for us to assign. So you have to be very careful about what you assign and where you assign initially. We're going to go ahead and assign 1 family to our logging camp. They're going to take care of that. Now, if we hover over our construction materials, we can see that we have 2 timber left. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take care of our food as well. So we are going to set down a initial berry hut, and we're gonna also set this up right here. We don't really need it too close. Some of these you can move around, such as our logging camp. We can relocate them. Some of them we can't, so you'll have to delete them and rebuild them. So you always have to be careful about what you do with your particular buildings. I'm okay leaving our berry hut, forager hut, all the way over here. We don't necessarily need it right away, and they'll go ahead and start collecting from this deposit that's steadily growing. Now, we've started building up our village, but you can see we have a new message that's popped up. So we have a new message from our baron, the local illegitimate baron. I have heard of your renown. I only seek to defend my rights and my honor against those who would wrong me. I hope you will not judge me by the rumors and slanders that some may spread about me, signed and sealed by my own seal, Hildebolt von Barenroot. Then we can opt to write back, and we could say, you have no rightful claim to sell bits and Hofstetten, and all you have to do is just drag and drop right here, and you're good to go. Now, that being said, we're not going to lose any influence for this particular comment. We can also negotiate. We can request some silver. We can also declare a surprise war, which takes a lot of influence and stuff like that. But I'm Canadian, so inherently I'm a nice person. So I'm not going to go ahead and say anything like that. And we're just going to continue on our journey. Our granary is almost ready to go, and we can see that our storehouse is starting to set up a little bit. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and assign one person to each temporarily. And really, the goal is just to get all of this stuff off the ground over here so that we can start working on everything else. Same for the berry farm. We're going to assign one person to this particular farm, and they're going to go ahead and take care of everything. Now, as we play the game, you're going to see a bunch of these little tags populate at the very top. It's going to let you know that we have exposed goods. We need to have exposed goods for generic storage. It's letting us know that we need to take care of some things. And it's also telling us we need to start working on our home list. Now, how do you grow your population? It's a great question. It's not like normal games where population just appear out of nowhere. You need to build burgage plots in order to entice people to come and visit, but also you have to keep your population pretty happy. Right now, our approval rate is lowering because we have a large homelessness population, which is our entire population. So we need to kind of figure that out now. So knowing if we want to kind of keep this entire area right here for farming, yeah, we can kind of delegate this entire area. Maybe this will be where we kind of set up some of our homes and stuff like that. Now, how you set up homes is really unique and kind of cool. So let's take a look at setting up our first burgage plot. So going to residential, we set up our burgage plot. Anything with a little box like this means that you get to set it up the way you want, which is a really cool and unique feature. Now, it does kind of give you an idea of how to kind of construct things right here. You can rotate them around, have fun with it. We're going to go ahead and set up our own burgage plots. And we're going to go based off this initial path that we've created. And we're going to go over 2, and then we're going to go up quite a bit. Now, the reason why we want to go up, but we didn't go quite large enough. There we go. The reason why we want to go up quite a bit is you're going to see these plots develop. And the second half that you're seeing with that little construction symbol, what this tells us is that we can set up our own little side project here for our population. Things that, such as vegetables and eggs and so chickens. So it's really important for you to always keep in mind that when you're building this. On top of this, this particular plot also has the option to have a second house. So when you normally build a burgage plot, if you wanted to build multiple at the same time, you could go like so, go all the way over, and it'll automatically build them to let you know how much it's going to cost. I don't recommend that though, because if we do it this way, we can actually maximize our overall land use, and it's going to be easier for us to start adding in additional family homes and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and plop down our first burgage plot. It's going to set that up, and we're going to unpause the game and hope they get to work relatively quickly. And we can already start seeing that our timber is starting to flow in, which is always a fantastic sign. We need to make sure that our timber is going to be our #1 resource. And we can already start working on our second burgage plot as they kind of put this all together. Super easy. We're just going to set it up on the same path, just like so, and can kind of continue this journey down. So we're going to have our residential section right here. We might want to maybe put a second path right here. So we're going to have 2 residential sections. It's really up to you. And that's what I really like about this game. It's super freeform. If you want to make a really interesting looking burgage plot, by all means, you can do so. You can go like so. It's entirely up to you.
A blind man or a fool? Or perhaps a blind fool?
Well, apparently I'm a blind fool for approving the construction the way I did. I do appreciate the various commentary in the background. It definitely makes the game a little bit more fun and unique. And just like that, we've already set up our first burgage plot. This is how we attract new residents to our area as well. So let's go ahead and we're going to construct a backyard extension. So we can do dough shed, chicken coop, or vegetable garden. Vegetable garden will provide vegetables, which they have to plow and yield based off the time of the year. We can do a passive yield of eggs, which I prefer personally. So we're gonna go ahead and set up some eggs. And then lastly, once this is done, shouldn't take too long. I believe they actually kind of just do the thing on their own. Once this is done, we're also going to request to expand the living space. So this will add a second home to the area. It's going to maximize our overall population growth and make sure that we can kind of get what we want, where we want. So right off the bat, we've already satisfied the majority of our homelessness issue, and we're fairly early in the beginning of the game. So it's important you kind of stay on top of things. It's the game is very easy to get into the habit of running into these stagnant areas where you don't really know what to do, and that's okay. It's part of the game is learning how to deal with certain different issues and whatnot that does populate. Now, as the game kind of develops, and we're gonna finish constructing our backyard, our burgage plot. I think we're upgrading it still. Maybe. Come on. There we go. We're also going to request a chicken coop on this one, and we can see that our resources, our number of months before surplus runs out, is quite good. Food 6 months, fuel 7 months. We are going to have to address our fuel issues shortly, but we're not too bad off. Now, in order to free up some work families. We can unassign people from granaries or storehouses. In this case, we're going to unassign somebody from the storehouse. We don't necessarily need them there. It's going to give us a little bit of added room. And then we're going to go ahead and build our last burgage plot. Same idea. We're going to go and try to maximize that space as much as possible. Make the most of that space. And we get a nice little village that's kind of starting off. We have our residential and we have our industrial. Now, thankfully, as far as I know, smell and whatnot has not been implemented in the game. So while the normal world, we may not want to be working next to a logging camp or anything like that, we are going to want to keep in mind that certain industrial aspects of the game, such as our bloomery, where we turn iron ore into iron slabs, our smithy, we're maybe going to want to place that somewhere a little further away from our residential plot. Now, the last thing that we kind of need in order to really bring our entire village to life is going to be a well. Now, we have a few places we can place our well. We're going to go ahead and place one just up here. It's a little far away, but that's okay. We can kind of make do, and this is going to give us the perfect place for a mini market. So a market is going to be where everybody's going to go to collect all of your goods. And you don't necessarily need a big market right off the bat. I think 9 stalls is going to be more than enough. But as your village grows, you're going to want to add in additional marketplaces. You can also add in a bunch of other things. And this is going to be how we upgrade our burgage plots. Now, thankfully, the tutorial does definitely help you out in terms of understanding where and what to do, but we've reached a point where we're quite happy. Now, if we take a look here about what our burgage plots initially need: water access, church, fuel stall, food stall, and a clothing stall. So these are all things that we're going to want to push towards while playing the game. Now, we finally addressed our population situation, but if you look at this, living space is 5, total families is 5. We're not going to see any growth associated with this. So we are going to go ahead and request to expand our living space. Now, unfortunately, we cannot construct an additional backyard extension. Backyard extensions are provided via the regional wealth, and this is the money owned by the villagers, not by you or the region as whole, but just the villagers themselves. So in this case, we're not going to be able to add anything, but that's okay. We can still survive the way we are. Now, the last thing that's kind of ticking down right now is fuel. So we have one last item that we need to place down in order for us to be essentially self-sufficient from the perspective of starting off this place. So we need a woodcutter's lodge. And a woodcutter's lodge, super easy. We're just going to place it right next to our little barrier forage hut. My goodness. And there we go. And this will get us our firewood. So we're pretty much ready for the winter. We just need to kind of maintain everything. Now the goal of the game is to start growing your population, start exploring and identifying new solutions, fulfilling your industrial needs, if you will, and starting to expand. Now, understandably, I've gone crazy. I haven't set up an initial farm. And the reason why, because farmers require some population. We just don't really have the population necessary for that just yet. But we also need to keep in mind that even if we were to start on wheat, our major crop, it would be wheat. We can go flax and barley as well. We still need to convert all of that into food. So for our wheat to be converted into food, we need to have a wood mill, which is going to turn our grain from flour, flour from grain, my apologies. And then our flour will produce bread. So we actually need a whole production chain in order for us to get bread. And we're not in a position just yet where we can afford that. Now, on top of that, there's a few other things that we want to maybe take a look at. So when it comes to our construction, we want to go under administration. We can see that we have a settlers camp. Settlers camp are going to be how we settle in new areas, which are going to come in later in the game. And we also have our manor. So our manor is going to be where we can start to recoup our actual wealth, so our treasury. And we're going to take this from taxes produced, and we can also start trading and everything like that. In fact, we could actually open up a trading post right now. It's very easy for us to do so, but we have to keep in mind that maybe we don't have any resources to trade. So it's kind of a slow game at first. It's all about managing your resources, making sure that the living space that you have available to you is going to be the living space that you actually need. Now, as time goes by, you can also add in an apiary, charcoal kiln. You can actually get some foresters' huts to relocate, to grow some forest, so you can kind of have a self-sustaining forest. You can actually see that our logging camp has started to clear this area out. We have to be very careful that we don't go too close to the berries. Now, in order to kind of dictate where the logging camp will go, click on advanced, and we can actually click on limit work area. And we're going to go ahead right there. We have to keep an eye on this. It will pop up and let you know that the work area is kind of exhausted, but we're going to continue our way forward. And I think from an initial tutorial of this game, that's actually not too bad. It's very easy to get into the game, but it can be a little bit of a struggle to understand the core mechanics, but that's what makes this game super amazing. Now we can see it's already started raining, and this is what I meant by we wanted to make sure we got all of our goods off the ground before it started raining, because that can be terrible. And of course, if you ever run into a position where you no longer want a road, say for example we want to get rid of this road, we can go ahead and remove it. Unfortunately, it removed the entire road. Not ideal, but we can pull this back fairly easily. Now, you'll notice there is one thing that we haven't deleted yet, which is the hitching post. The hitching post is where we can we can store some ox and some horses and stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and leave it where it is for now. Don't really have a place that we want to have it live on, but we do need to kind of keep everything like that in mind. Now we're going to go ahead and assign somebody to our woodcutter's lodge. It's going to give us our firewood coming through. And just like that, we're going to have a self-sufficient village called Wallbrand. Now, can you rename the village? No, not really. But what you can do is you can go under, as you level up, you can go under policies. You can see that we can start to assign policies. We can see production, everything like that. On one of my favorite items so far, because I haven't really checked out a whole lot of the game, is actually under trapping, where we can enable hunters to skillfully lay traps in the forest, which gives us a passive income of meat. My theory is that food is going to be the #1 bottleneck in this particular game. If you don't have enough food, your village will die off, and then if your village dies off, you pretty much lose the game. So you have to keep that in mind, that we are focused on trying to grow our village as much as possible. Now, there is one thing I would love to see implemented in this game, which is a maximum resource limit. So the way the game runs is, in this case of your loggers camp, they're going to continue to cut down wood as long as they can for whatever they can. Now, that's good initially until your storehouse actually fills up, because you can only have 250 items in your storehouse at any given time. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Now, thankfully, in general, it's not too big of an issue. You can just build up a new storehouse. You can start trading off a bunch of stuff. So in the grand scheme of things, it all kind of works out. We also have a stone deposit over here, which is a good opportunity for us to also place down under mining a stonecutter's camp. Now, unlike a camp for a mining pit, which has to be placed on top of your mining location, your stonecutter's camp can actually be placed anywhere, and they'll just go to that area. So in this case, let's go ahead and we'll place it just over here. I think it's a good place for it. We can go ahead and make sure it's connected. Weirdly enough, and you can actually see that our path is starting to get more well-traveled. The more people walk on it, you can see these little paths kind of get a little bit bigger, which is why you kind of see the difference. So when you first place your path, it's pretty slim, but as time goes by, you're going to see this path kind of grow as well. Now, as you develop the game as well, or as you develop within the game rather, you will also stumble across bandit camps and some other things, so you have to keep those in mind. And we're in a good central location, but the downside with that is it does mean that roving parties are more likely to stumble across you as they travel from one section to the other, and they're still going to pass through. So we are going to have to maybe fight off some roving bands of marauders, and that's something that we always want to keep in mind. Now, we can take a look at our approval. We can see that our controls over our population growth, our homelessness is starting to decrease. Our market food variety is going up. If we look right here, low population growth. So now all we're waiting for is for more population to come through. The more that come through, the more likely we are to have some additional residents. Now we're in a standstill. We have no more available unassigned families, which means we have no way of building new materials, but that's okay. It's all about a balancing game in the very beginning. So in this case, maybe we'll pull off somebody from our granary and we'll go ahead and start building some additional burgage plots. Now, growth is going to be #1, so that's always what you want to do. You always want to keep an eye on your burgage plots, and how you choose to build them is entirely up to you. Maybe we'll start right here. Maybe we'll end off this little residential area. Maybe we'll add on to another residential area somewhere else. And it's all about growing and seeing your village develop. I will say I love the development animation as they kind of put everything together. If we slow it down, you can kind of see them hammering it. And it doesn't go up right away. It goes up over time, which I kind of appreciate. Looks really cool. You can kind of see a little bit of phase through. They're going into the other wall there, but that's okay. I do love the attention to detail on this particular game. You can see some stalls. So Beatrix is working at our stall right now, and we can see that that's how we're getting more food. We have our this is our stonecutter camp. We have our little well over here set up. Our village is a budding village, and we are ready to go. In fact, we can also see Linhart the ox. It's an amazing name for an ox. Transporting some wood, getting ready to build some additional buildings. In this case, I actually think he's not building, but he's rather taking somebody over to the woodcutter's lodge so we can continue to develop our fuel. My apologies. And you can see our food is doing really well, our fuel is doing really well, and just like that, we've created a self-sufficient, to an extent, village. But again, we're stuck in a place where we just have to see this village grow. Now, thankfully, we have a lot of children, and those children will also grow up and become families as well, so our growth, while limited initially, will start to pick up quite quickly as the game develops. So let's talk farming. So we've done a little bit. We've started to develop our population. Our approval rating is starting to go up. We have quite a bit of empty space though, and we could potentially start setting up some farms. Now, when it comes to farming, it's not just as easy as placing down a farm. First things first, you need to place down a farming house. Farming house is going to dictate exactly who's working on what farm, stuff like that. And we have a perfect plot right here, actually. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to place our farming house right here. So we're pre-planning for the future. On top of that, we're going to place down a farm. And we're going to go ahead and place down a rather large farm. Now, the way farms work is it uses a measurement called Morgan. So Morgan is the measurement of time it takes for one family to plow a field. So the game will recommend you have a field that is no larger than 1 Morgan. So we can see a little too large. Maybe we'll shorten it down a little bit. 1.1. 1.1's fine enough. Now, the really cool thing with your farmland, you can see that we actually kind of booked it into this little corner. So it's a great use of a lot of space that's maybe a little abstract or weird. And same for your marketplace. You could place it in some unique places and stuff like that. And what this does is it just kind of fills in the area. In fact, we could even place a second farm, a little one right here. And you get these really cool farm plots that will set up. Now, if you ever want to see how your partner is doing, you can actually also go and take a look over here. I don't know if the game actually loads anything, but you can kind of see this is their plot of land, and we'll keep an eye on it. We'll maybe see if anything happens over here as time goes by, if they grow up their little village and stuff like that. It'll be very interesting to see if that capability is placed in. Now, I'm really excited about this game as well, is because I have a feeling that you can have like small villages. So even though there's one village right here, maybe we can add a second village over here with its own store place and everything like that. And even though it's only one plot of land, we may be able to have multiple villages set up. Now, the last thing we might want to take a look at building, and we're probably going to build this a little bit differently. If we go under gathering, we can see that there's a hunting camp. Now, it's free to build a hunting camp, which is always appreciative. There's no resources required to build it. But what is required is the time it takes to walk all the way over here. So you have to be careful about where we place this. Initially, we might just place this a little bit off the beaten path. So let's say like right there. And we're going to go ahead and connect this to the path. We're going to go like this. Build that like that. And then we're going to go like so. Get a nice little Y so they can kind of like pull in. Now, the benefit of here is that you don't really require anything, so you can pick up, delete these wherever you want. It's all good. And then what you can do is you can start taking advantage of this wild animal deposit. And just like that, we've also had our first family move into our burgage, which is fantastic. This is exactly what we want to see. And knowing that we have an extra family, let's go ahead and expand this existing burgage plot. So we're going to go ahead and maximize the amount of space that we have and go from there. Now, unfortunately, we cannot upgrade any of our burgage plots to level 2. And the reason why is because we haven't hit that small village requirement. Now, on top of that, we also want to keep an eye out for church level and clothing stall. And speaking of church, let's take a look at what required to build a church. So church is going to be under residential. We're going to see a little church button, and we require planks. And it takes up a rather large amount of space. You can't even pre-place it if you don't have the resources necessary. So knowing that, let's go under our gathering, and we're going to go ahead and set up a saw pit as well. We'll set this up like this. I think it's a good use of our space. Maybe we won't build any further out. We'll start to build this way and maybe create a separate subdivision behind. It would be kind of cool if we had like a now I'm thinking, because it's all about creating something that's going to look beautiful in this game. So if we take a look under residential and set up our church, we could actually set up our church like so. Gonna rotate it around, have one like this, and then we can have our burgage plots with our backyards facing it. I think it's going to look rather dashing for a little village. So something to think of and keep in mind as we start to develop our area. Now, it does say that we require some clothing. Now, in order to get clothing, there's a few different steps to take care of this. So we can go ahead and start developing linen, which requires wool to produce yarn and flax to produce linen. And then from yarn and linen, we can start producing clothing. We also have leather from hides, which we're going to produce from our hunting camp. We have a malt house, which is going to produce malt from barley. We have our clay furnace, which is going to take clay and turn it into tiles. So you can see it's quite a robust initially infrastructure tab. Now on top of that, we do have a free unassigned worker. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that family to this farm. And then what we're going to do, as we pause the game to explain, we have 3 crops. So wheat is, if we take a look at this, emmer is wheat. So don't be confused by that. So we're going to go ahead and say we want to produce wheat. Now our fertility rate is pretty low. So we're going to go ahead and say wheat for the first crop, and we're going to rotate our crops. Fallow will allow this field to regenerate any fertility, which is going to be super important as we don't have a whole lot of fertility to work with. And we're going to go with wheat like so. Now, on top of that, we can force an early harvest. There's also an option to burn fields. So not that I've ever reached this point in the game, but if there is a situation where potentially we're dealing with some type of plague or invasive species, we may actually have to burn our fields in order to stop that spread, which is a very interesting concept. But just like that, we're starting to grow. We have 8 burgages plots, so which means we can have a total of 8 potential families on site, and it's time for us to see how Waldbrand grows. So some time has passed. We are in the midst of our summer months, and we have a few things that we have to keep in mind. We're starting to see our population grow, but we're also running into a bottleneck. Now, it's often that you might see a pop-up here. It's going to look like a little box, and it's going to tell you that your generic storage is full, and this could be many things. In this case, it's this particular area. So our woodcutter's lodge is doing fantastic. They're pumping out firewood like there's no tomorrow. This is actually helping us with our fuel supply, which means that as it stands right now, if we were to stop growing, our village can survive for at least a year, which is fantastic. So knowing that, you're going to see a few of these pop-ups, and don't worry. The only thing you want to keep an eye on, initially anyway, is your storehouse. As long as your storehouse has not exceeded the total amount of storage, you are going to be okay. Now, on top of that, we've started to see some additional people grow in. So knowing that, we're going to take a look at our hunting camp. So I've already assigned the family. You saw me pop that on there. And we have a hunting limit. So when a population of a herd drops to this number, workers will stop hunting. You take a look over here at our wild animals. There's 20 wild animals in this forest. See if maybe we can spot one kind of wandering around. There we go. A herd of deer, if you will. Quite a few deer, actually. It's fantastic. So they're going to hunt until they reach 10. And once it hits 10, they're going to stop hunting, and they're going to allow the population to regrow. It'll always stay at 10 or thereabouts. And that's important for us to keep in mind. And really cool, we can already see the family hard at work at preparing this field for wheat, which is fantastic. And we've moved on to, I want to say, the next stage of our settlement. Now, in order for us to hit the next stage of Waldbrand, to go from a settler's camp to a small village, we require 1 additional burgage plot. So we could actually expand to a small village without the use of actually having all of our burgage plots full, but we're going to go ahead and place down that final burgage plot, and that's going to upgrade Waldbrand to the next area. Unfortunately, we're not able to take advantage because we unfortunately do not have enough people working. So we're going to go ahead and pull them off of our woodcutter's lodge. Again, it's all about balancing and trying to make sure that you're keeping your population happy at the same time as you are constructing. So we're going to pull them off there temporarily, place them on this burgage plot, and we're going to upgrade it at the same time. And you can see this keeps on popping up. If you click on it, it's going to drag you over to your generic storage that's tagging it, which is really nice, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And just like that, we've hit our second level of our village. We're going to go ahead and expand this living space. Well, before I forget, and we have a new message. So everything happens all at once. A strong militia is paramount to the survival of any settlement. Luckily, a shipment of weapons has just arrived, and you will now be able to create your first militia banners to serve you and protect your people. However, we will need more weapons to equip all the people as the settlement grows, either by making them or importing them from other lands. Let's form our militia. So we're going to pause really quickly here because there's a few things. First off, let's take a look at our development window. And we have quite a bit that we can kind of develop and stuff like that. So under our development window, we have some initial areas. So we can see that we have an orchardry. So a new upgrade for apple orchard produces apples, which is fantastic. Sheep breeding allows us to breed some sheep. And then we have a heavy plow, which enables employing oxen at the farmhouse for significantly faster plowing of larger fields, as well as bringing crops back to storage more efficiently, which is always nice to see. So you can kind of maximize your field. We have trapping, which is going to provide us a passive income of meat, forest management, which is going to double the capacity of all berry deposits, and beekeeping, which is going to give us an apiary. And then, of course, we have a basic armor making, charcoal burning, and then trade logistics. Establishing a new trade always costs a maximum of 25 regional wealth, and foreign suppliers, new building firewood cart. So a permanent market stall, which provides a passive income of firewood as long as the region has enough regional wealth. So I like to think it's either going to be the heavy plow or the trapping. So let's go with heavy plow, because again, food is going to be paramount to our success in this particular game. But it's not just easy to unlock that. So what you have to do is a few things. Right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and maybe move this to like right here. It's going to be paramount that I want to move this to the right spot, because I've never actually built an upgraded stable. And now in order for, actually I say that, and we're going to move it again. It's going to be really funny. You may laugh, and that's okay. So we're going to let it do its thing. We're going to let it construct. You know what? Maybe we'll actually just construct a whole new one. So in order for us to find our little hitching post, we're going to go ahead and place it right here, maybe. Not enough goods. Okay. I guess we're just going to move this again. Like so. We're going to place this all the way down here for a few reasons. Sorry, we're going to place this all the way down here for a few reasons. Part off is because it's going to be close to the areas that we want it to really kind of be focusing on and constructing. And if we construct it, it's going to construct and upgrade it in the same spot. So I'm worried that we're not going to be able to move it once we've upgraded this, so we have to keep that in mind. But we can actually buy additional oxen. So that's really kind of cool. And on top of that, while we're doing that, if we look under trade, we're going to go to trading post. We do require some timber, if I'm not mistaken. We need to pull some people off something here. Let's pull them off the saw pit. There we go. We have room for two stable space, which means that we can have a second ox here, and then we can assign it. So it's easy to say that we can just assign an ox to your farmhouse, but in doing so, it's going to limit your construction ability because we're not going to have an ox to drive anything. So you have to keep in mind that it's one thing to unlock it. You still have to do a little bit of extra work to get where you need to go to produce the rest of it. So we're just going to wait a few minutes for us to produce some timber. You want to know why they're not producing timber? It's because we limited their work size. So we're going to go ahead and reset that. That's why we weren't getting it. And we have sighted a bandit camp. This is the last thing that we have to keep an eye on. It's fairly close, actually. Let's take a look at mustering up our army. So as we pause, this is what they were telling us to do. We're going to go ahead. We have a choice. We can either create a new militia, footman, spear militia, polearm militia, or archer militia. In this case, we can only go with our spearmen because we only have spears. They only provided spears to us. Now, on top of that, the unit max size is 36. We only have 15 because that's the amount of adults, male adults in our village. And when we go to war, all the male adults up to 36 will go to war. Now, on top of that, you can hire mercenary companies. If we take a look here, it's going to take treasury, so we don't necessarily have any money to buy them right now. This is where the trading post is going to come in, but we can see that we can do brigands for hire, the Brotherhood of the Forest, and the Ravenous Vultures. They rotate quite often, which is kind of cool. Now, in the case of the logging camp, we hit a spot where we kind of forgot about their limited work. So if we want to unlimit their work, we can just hit clear work area, and they're going to start doing their thing wherever they want. The only reason we want to keep an eye on this is we want to keep them away from the berry deposit. We don't want them to necessarily do that. So the other option to kind of manage this is we can actually go ahead and move this particular plot, maybe move it right there. And what'll end up happening is it's just going to make sure that they don't necessarily start taking advantage of the area. We don't want them to over what's the word I'm looking for? Clear cut the area. I want to get a nice bend here. Good enough. Our logging camp is reassigned. We just have to reassign some family to our logging camp. Can't forget that as well. And our supplies here will eventually be picked up once we assign somebody to the storehouse. We actually have quite a few additional workers now, though. What's going on here? We pulled some people off the firewood. We'll reassign them to the saw pit. Got the forager's hut all set up. Got the logging camp all set up. And what we're going to do is we're going to assign somebody to the storehouse. And this is just going to start clearing up the area of all of our additional lying around supplies. We want to get that out of the winter and stuff like that. And we can see that our wheat field is slowly growing. We are right now in the growth phase. We can force an early harvest. My apologies. But they need to have a minimum of 15%. If we force the early harvest, obviously we lose all that extra work. So we want to keep that in mind. And just like that, we can see that we've hit autumn, and it's now too cold for us to really start growing stuff. So we have to keep that in mind. But thankfully, our food is in a solid position. We're just kind of waiting for everything to kind of come through. Approval rating is going up a little bit. We have no homelessness out anymore. It's slowly driving away. Although we do keep on getting this generic storage alert, which is letting us know that this is the saw pit's all filled up. Now, the other thing. Pardon me. The other thing we have to take into consideration is the berry deposit. So right now we're collecting quite a bit of food from our berry deposit. Unfortunately, that does mean that in the winter, we're going to have to deal with that. And sadly, our nearby bandits have stolen 4 hide and 12 food, which is not cool. That's not allowed, but they're so far away. And that's the unfortunate part. So we are going to eventually have to muster up an army and head over there. And usually the best time to do this, I like to think, is in the winter. It's not often you would have a winter campaign, especially in this day and age. It would be very hard to travel that far. But from a workforce perspective, anyway, the winter is going to be the time of the year where the majority of your workers are not going to be doing. They're not going to be out in the fields. They're not going to be going and picking berries. So you can reallocate them to somewhere else. Now, in this case, because we only have 19 men and we require 36 in order for us to field a full unit, this does mean we are not going to have any men when we leave, and that means that all of our production stops. So we want to keep that in mind when it comes to working on particular campaigns where we're going to attack the bandits and stuff like that. Does it make sense for us to not attack bandits, or does it make sense for us to attack bandits? We also want to get a healthy unit of men up and running. Now, as we kind of continue, we can see that we have a living space total of 10, and we actually have used up all of our initial living space. So it's time for us to start constructing a few things. And we talked a little bit about setting up this wooden church. So we're going to go ahead, place this right here, and then we'll have a nice little path come out like so. I want this to be straight. I like straight lines. I don't know about you. You can actually kind of make a good use of this, like so. And just like that, we have our wooden church up and running, and we're actually slowly moving the majority of our industry from here to better places. The only thing we're not going to be able to move, I think, is no, we can move everything. It's fantastic. It's exactly what we wanted to see. So let's go ahead and we'll also set down a new burgage plot. Like so, and maybe we can fit in a second one actually at the same time. Nope, not enough goods, so that's okay. We'll continue with what we have. Disease is something we have to take into consideration within this game. People suffering from disease may stop working, and access to herbs might speed up the recovery while a varied diet increases disease resistance. Here's the downside. I actually don't know how we can source herbs in this game. So I was taking a look, and I've yet to find out where herbs come from, or herbs, however you want to call it. You would think they would be under the gathering, but they're not, which is really confusing for me. So I don't quite know. Maybe it's somewhere else. I don't know. But with something the kids can take into consideration. Now, there is a solution to this, though. And what we can do is we can build a trading post. Now, a trading post has to be built on the King's Highway. So we're going to go ahead and place this like right here, perhaps. We're going to go ahead and start this up. And this is going to be a nice way for us to start pulling in some treasury funds as well, which will allow us to actually hire some mercenaries. So maybe we don't even have to send off any of our militia to take care of those pesky bandits. Instead, what we can do is we can take some of our treasury wealth and we can actually hire some units. Weirdly enough, the Greek caps actually might be the better unit to hire. More so because they actually have 2 attack, so you can kind of see some of their stats. They have swords, though. Swords and bows. They just seem like better people in general. So the best way for us to get treasury income fairly early in the game is to set up a trading post. I'm going to go ahead and set this as high priority. This is going to be our highest priority, so we can start pulling in some of those funds. This means they're going to stop working on our wooden church, but that's okay. We don't necessarily need that wooden church right away, and they're going to start working on everything else. Now, if we take a look at our storehouse, we can see that it is starting to fill up, so we may need to set up a second storehouse somewhere. So start going from there. Alternatively, we can actually just upgrade this. That's a massive storage upgrade. Let's go ahead and do that. I wonder if it's easier for you to upgrade because they already have the majority of the planks in the area, and all they really need is just some of these timbers. And we are pulling in timber quite quickly, thankfully. In fact, maybe not quick enough. So let's go ahead and sign a second family to our timber yard and see if maybe we can pull in some additional timber a little bit faster. Other than that, I think we've upgraded all of our plots. Can't fit anybody else into these homes, but that's okay. We can see their armaments. They don't really require much more than just a clothing store. 1-star linen, wool, or leather. So we're going to have to start producing some type of leather eventually. And if we take a look over here at our hunting lodge, we actually should have some leather pulling in. Where would we find that? Probably under goods. Yeah, we can see 14 hides. So we could build a tannery. Tannery? And it doesn't require a whole lot, just 4 wood. You probably want to build it somewhere far away. Tanneries can get quite smelly, depending on what you use to tan everything. If you use like lime or anything like that, it's definitely going to smell quite bad. And then we've gotten the alert: some resources disappear when it's getting cold and reappear again in the spring. So definitely something that we have to take into consideration. In fact, we could actually unassign somebody from the forager hut temporarily and see that we don't have to worry about that. In fact, while we're at it, we might as well go ahead and move our forager's hut all the way up here so we can get it out of the way. Start kind of maybe expanding this direction for some additional stuff. And finally, we can see that our exposed stocks are getting damaged. So our supplies here are 44 berries. My goodness. Need somebody working on that granary to pick up those berries. They're getting damaged, so we want to transfer them over here. And these dang bandits, we're gonna have to deal with them sooner rather than later. But we finally have our trading post up and running, and we'll take a quick look at how trade works. Super easy, actually, surprisingly easy. So what we can do is we can opt to decide what we want to trade in, and we can see that we can export it for 2 or buy it, import it for 12. So I'm wondering, I'm sure there's a way for you to actually find items that might import or export for a weird amount, and I wonder if you can maybe game the system. Doesn't look like it, but that's okay. The best way, though, I'm thinking about it, I wonder. So you could export some cloaks for 8 gold, but in order to make cloaks, you would need some type of raw resource, and like linen, as an example, we can import it for 14. So I would be curious to see if there's an area where this would actually make sense. Now, on top of that, you can also establish a trade route. So after paying to establish a trade route, a dedicated traveling merchant will regularly visit your region to trade only this specific type of good. So it just means that we're going to kind of ensure that they come around on a regular basis. In this case, we're probably going to trade off some of our core resources. We could say, like, as an example, our planks. We're going to export some planks. Now we want to have a desired surplus. We're going to say we want to have no more than 10 at any given time. Everything else we're just going to export. Stone is a finite amount. We wouldn't necessarily want to transport that off initially, but we'll go ahead with what we have right here. Now the downside is we have to unassign somebody from a logging camp or reassign them to a trading post. Again, you're going to play that juggling game as you try to make sure people move around a lot. And we are set. We've upgraded our burgage plot. We will upgrade our burgage plot. We have 12 homes going on, maybe 13. No, 12. So it's room for 2 more families to come and help out, which is exactly what we want to see. And we can see here the wheat field is going to be our second year. So we're currently on fallow. It's going to switch over to wheat shortly. So after a little bit of work, we finally have our wooden church set up. We do not have anybody working on our wooden church, but it does satisfy the requirement for a wooden church. So all we need now is our clothing stall, which really all that takes is just some linen and leather or whatnot. And we can see that it's slowly coming along. Now, we haven't increased our regional wealth that much. We actually don't have 2 regional wealth, so it's growing, but relatively slowly, and that is the downside. One way to increase your regional wealth is actually to attack this bandit camp, and in doing so, you're going to earn some money from this. So knowing that, our last goal for this episode will be to strike out against our neighbors. So we're going to go ahead and rally our unit of men, and we're actually going to rally them like right here. I think, is that a path? Oh, we're about to run out of timber and block yourself. So funny enough, the game does tell you when you're running out of timber, which I can appreciate. So maybe we won't raise an attack just yet, because I guess timber is something. I don't know, we have 22 timber. What do you mean we're running low? Weird. Okay, hang on. Let's go ahead and we are going to rally again. And it's going to give you a quick idea of how this works. If you play Total War or any other RTRS game like that before, very similar. You also have stances, morale, fatigue, things like that you have to keep in mind. So you always want to make sure you watch that. Now, like I mentioned, in doing so, this can be quite dangerous because you are taking your men away from home. They're not necessarily going to be able to produce anything. On top of that, you can see that our fatigue is coming down, and we have our bandits, so they're actually kind of coming up right now. So let's go ahead. We're going to set up our unit of men in a line of 2 for that. We are fighting on a downhill slope, so let's maybe rotate just over here. We can take advantage of the terrain where we can. Obviously, if you fight on the top of a hill, it's just going to be better for you. Fight on the bottom of the hill, not so much. So I'd rather fight diagonally to make sure that we're going to win this. Now you can see we're egging them on. It's quite even, but we have, I want to say, slightly better weapons with the spears. We have our stances right here. We can hold, stand your ground. So defense is gonna go up, but our attacks are we're gonna reduce our attack. So we're only gonna attack half as much. But this is gonna be what is probably gonna cause us to win, because we are actually quite fatigued right now. We are quite tired. Oh, there we go. We can see the battle has turned in our favor. We had to speed it up just a tad. We've taken out a few of them already, so 5 of them are down, 6 of them are down. They can't be here for much longer. Sadly, though, we have lost somebody, which is unfortunate. But such is life in the frontier. Now, what we want to do is we want to head over to the bandit camp. We're going to speed up time, head to that bandit camp, and we are going to get a choice here. Now, we have a message. So when searching through the enemy belongings, you find a stash of goods. They could be sent to your people, who surely need them, though it is your right to keep them. So as the lord of the area, I could maybe send this money to my treasury, or I could instead send the resources to the nearest town, which in this case is my town, so it's your nearest town. So knowing this, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Do you want more regional wealth, or do you want more treasury? In this case, we're going to go for more regional wealth, because this is going to help us to shore up the rest of our population, and we're going to head back. So just like that, we've been on our campaign. We made 6 regional wealth, which is going to allow us to expand a lot of our burgage plots. So we're going to go ahead and maybe add in some chicken coops. We can also add in some goats if you want. We can upgrade this to not a large granary. We want more chicken coops, and then just for some variety, we'll add in some vegetable plots as well. So it's very interesting in the sense that even though your unit, they're producing their own in their backyards, they'll actually go into the global wealth, which is kind of important. And just like that, we've created a self-sufficient village. It's slowly growing. We even have our own wooden church. Sadly, we have seen somebody pass away in fighting for our home, and that's okay. That's it's gonna happen. It is the reality of the times, but we're moving in the right direction. Now, next things we want to keep an eye on for our building. We want to look at maybe building a manor. Can't build it just yet. We're actually short some wood planks, so we're saving them up. I'm thinking we're going to build a manor on the top of this hill, though. So if we look around, you can see that hill is right here, so we get a nice commanding view of our village. We're right off the King's Highway, so I think that's fairly good. And of course, from a defensive perspective, it's going to be even better. So we may see, we may just want to clear out this forest here or something like that and take advantage of that space. But that's it for this episode. I think I spent more than enough time playing Manor Lords. I'm really excited about this game. I'm going to upload this video relatively quickly to YouTube, and I'm looking forward to playing some more. If you appreciated this episode, feel free to subscribe, maybe leave a comment, leave a like. I would love to hear your thoughts on Manor Lord and what other games you'd like to see. Now, if you are here for Planet Zoo, if you waited this long to hear about Planet Zoo, have no fear. We have a new episode in the works already for Igwa Zoo, as well as some exciting updates for our Community Zoo project as well. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you so much for your support. I always appreciate it. And ciao for now, everybody.